What's up, everyone? Steven here with Techmaker Studio. In this episode of Techmaker Workshop, we're going to start to actually try to piece together all the things we've been working on lately for our generative NFT project and make it so that whenever we purchase an NFT on the website, the image is actually generated and shows up here on screen. So I don't actually know how long this episode will be. It's possible we split it into two parts. I know we're already doing a bunch of parts of different things, but I kind of know what I need to get done, but it involves a whole lot of different little components and stitching all these things together. So in this episode, I typically I try to make it so that an episode is watchable if you haven't seen the other parts, but this one's going to be tough because we have so many different things to bring together. So if you want to understand what's happening here, you're probably going to have to go and actually check out all the previous stuff. So that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. So the first thing that I want to do is head over to my terminal, and I'm going to fire up my Vagrant VM that we put together for our Frog API, if you will recall. So I'm just going to say Vagrant SSH to see if it's still up or not. It may not be. I may have to relaunch it. Oh, no, here we go. So again, all this is covered in previous videos. I'm going to jump over into vagrant/app. And let's see, how do I start this thing? So I believe this is Python 3 -m, and then it's unicorn main app --reload --host equals 0.0.0.0, and looks like it's running. So if you will recall, this is from when we set up the actual the image generation service. So if you're unfamiliar with that, I know some people started following along with the smart contract stuff and didn't probably look at the image stuff. If you look in the description, all the like part 1, part 2, so on and so forth, the first parts of this are actually an image combination script that we wrote with Python, and it's running on a server. So let's really quickly look again at what is in this code. Again, I told you there's a lot of pieces to put together here. So you have to bear with me as we kind of click through and look at some stuff. Okay, so we have this, I believe it's this VM demo that we want to look at. I just want to like double check my file. So this is the file that we ran, is this main. So we should be able to do NFTs id.json. Okay, so if we go over here to localhost, is it 8000 that's running on? Yeah, 8000. And actually what we should do is go to http://0.0.8000 and then go nfts/1.json and see what that gives us. Let's just make sure it's working. And you can see here, this gets us an image that's stored on IPFS, and this is all managed in this code here. It's actually goes ahead and generates an image if it doesn't exist. And then I'm just reviewing really quick right here in place. Yeah, so if it exists, it if it exists, it returns an image. If it doesn't exist, it goes ahead and creates one. Sorry for all the stumbling around on this. It's kind of complicated. And before I forget, I just realized something I want to point out. Obviously, anytime you see a private key or something like that in my code, I'm just using test stuff here. So don't ever, use this because everybody can use it. It's all been seen. So anyway, just wanted to point that out. So what I want to do is just kind of start stitching this together. And it's not going to be perfect from the beginning. And actually, I can kind of see where we're going to end up having multiple episodes here. What I want to start with is just pulling back this JSON and then pulling the image out of the JSON. And then I'm just going to kind of stick it in the table here. It's not going to be pretty, and you should just know that going into it. But the other thing is it's not actually going to be connected to the smart contract. So what we're going to need to do is the first thing I'm going to do is hook up the user interface. So just understand that we're just going to go ahead and hook up the UI so that we can see the images printed out here, pulling back from our JSON data. But the smart contract, which I don't have open, doesn't actually know about this URL. So it's just going to be kind of hard-coded in the UI, and that doesn't make an NFT. We will ultimately need this URL in the NFT. Now, the reason that we have this so we can update the URL is so that we could actually update the smart contract to say, hey, here's the URL. I'm not sure. I got to kind of think through a few things, and I apologize for the bouncing around on this one, but realistically, we're putting together several topics here that are going to be a little bit tricky. And I'm also thinking about the next stage, which is actually deploying this to the real mainnet. Actually, before we jump into it, let me explain the problem I'm thinking about. So we obviously have a private key stored right here, okay? And we can't do that right now on an Aleph virtual machine, which is ultimately where I want to deploy this so that all of the metadata and everything is decentralized. So, but it's public. So if we publish our private key, it won't work. So what I'm thinking to do, and again, this is something I'm just kind of working myself through here, is maybe I'll just run this server like we are now on 0008,000 and then use a service like ngrok to expose a tunnel, basically, or create a public URL for our local server here so that this would now become a public server running on my computer. And then when we deploy the NFT contract, because we can update the URL, what we could do is while the minting is in process, we could show the ngrok URL in the contract so that it, the smart contract queries from there and OpenSea and everything else through that. And then once minting is over, we could deploy our Aleph virtual machine, but go ahead and strip out all of the private key stuff and just hard code the address. And the reason for that would be basically like, well, we no longer need to actually generate these files and publish to the network. All we need to do is read from the network. And we can read from the network with just the address, but we can't publish unless we actually have an account with the key here. So that's kind of the thinking, is like a two-step sort of process where it starts off running locally with the public exposure via this ngrok thing, and then migrate to an Aleph virtual machine so that it's all public. And then we would get our Aleph URL, and then we would update the contract to have that. So that's kind of plan A. It's kind of complicated, to be honest, and there's a chance that I go through all of this while we're testing and decide that actually it would be better to just deploy this to like a Heroku server or something in the short term. I'm a huge Aleph proponent, obviously, and I think that's what we're going to do. But if we hit any snags, I have a fallback plan, which is just deploy this to like Heroku. So anyway, you kind of understand maybe why I have some complexity in my head right now that we're not really diving into yet. But back to the point. So we have this running. We can see our JSON here. The only thing I'm going to do in this video, I think, is let's go over here to, well, actually, I can just open from here. I'm going to go ahead and just open up my client. And all I need to do, let's come into our, well, we have our NFT row. Right now we have a load function. Let's see, what do we want to do here? First of all, so load is called on basically load. Okay, so what we can do is inside this try, it's gonna fail if this fails if the owner has not been set yet on chain. So what we can do is just after this, we can say, let's do JSON equals await, and then we can just do fetch. and then we'll pass in HTTP. Let me actually do a backtick here. HTTP://00008000 slash NFTs slash, and then we'll interpolate the ID like this. Okay, and then we'll say data equals, well, let's actually do this. Response, let response equal this, let data equal await response dot JSON, and let's console.log JSON or data. Okay, all right, so save that, and then let's jump over to the browser. ID is not defined. That should say props.id. And we're pending on everything. Oh, that's weird. What did I do? That's incredible. Console.log data. Let's say this. Let's do if owner. Like that. Let's just save that. Okay, so now everything's coming through. Well, it was. Now it's running again. So it's, oh, it's loading every 2 seconds. That's why that's happening. Actually, maybe that's not it. Let's cut this out of here. Maybe this doesn't fit properly right here. Let's just write a new one and just say fetch image like this, and then we'll write a new function, const fetch image equals async, and I'll paste that in. I have an extra bracket there, so this should only run one time. Let's go over here. Okay, so let me refresh this, whatever's going on. It doesn't like, let me just like comment that out for a sec, save it, and let's go back over here and see if it's doing all this flickering. Okay, so that's our problem. I'm just kind of making sure what's causing what right now. Our URL is not working here, and I'm gonna make sure I don't have any obvious errors. Okay, let's save that again and let's see what happens. So ignore all the flickering, but we're failing to fetch. Let's do this. What's the failure? Let's make sure that we have our let URL equal this, and then we'll fetch the URL, and then let's say console.log URL. Just make sure that makes sense. Okay, so you can see here we're console logging all these URLs. If I open that, detail not found. Oh, I need to add .json. That's what it is. Okay, my bad. Let's try that again. Okay, so now I still didn't like it. But now if I click this, what happens? So I get back JSON. Okay, so here we go. Has been blocked by CORS policy. No access control allow. Origin header has been set. So I need to do uvicorn CORS policy. And let's have a look at this fast API here. From fast API. Okay. So let's go over to our code. This is kind of on the fly figuring out a problem. Let's open up our VM demo. Let's go to main. I'm not really that familiar with what's going on here, so we'll see. We're going to have to work this out together. So we're importing cores middleware, origins. I kind of want to allow all origins. So we'll say app.add middleware. I'm going to copy this, and we'll just put this here. And then origins, we can just do, I'm going to guess we can do star in an array like that. Let's come back over here and, okay, it's already rebooted. So now let's refresh here and see if we still get all the problems. No, okay, so that fixed it. So just adding that cores policy let us call out and get our JSON. Okay. So now, if we go back to the code, I don't want this open really. Do I still have other code open? I thought I did. Open recent. Okay. Cool. So just kind of parsing through the problems here. So we're fetching the image. So what we could do is up here we could say const image URL set image URL equals use state, and then just put an empty string maybe. Now that's not ideal because it's going to appear broken, but that's okay for now. In here what I'm going to do is just make a TD, and then I'm going to put an image in here, source equals image URL, and then I'm just going to set a couple of things. I'm going to say width equals 50 pixels, maybe make that like 70, and then height equals 70 pixels. Close that off and save, and let's see what this does. Okay, so now we have a bunch of broken images, which makes sense. And what's in our data? So if we look at this, we'll see we just have this image here. Okay, so let's actually, if we look at our image, so what we want to do is say set image URL, and then we'll say data.image, and let's just try this and see what happens. Cool, so now you can see all the various frogs coming in, and you don't have a lot of variety, or you can't really see much about them. Obviously they're different. You can see that there's the green is more rare. Do we have a green with a white hat? No, I guess not. So anyway, that pulls back our data. So what's left? Well, there's quite a bit left. First of all, we just kind of pulled this back. So what we want to do, instead of fetching straight from a hard-coded URL, what we're going to want to do is basically, and I'm going to make this actually a little note here, to do fetch from smart contract. So what we need to do is actually add this URL to the smart contract. And then what we can do is potentially in this method, and maybe we will bump this back up there. We could actually just kind of cut this here, paste it there. I don't need this console log. Let's get rid of that. Just kind of connect all this stuff together. Let's go have a look and see if that works. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so what we're ultimately going to want to do is pull this URL back from the contract. And did I delete my to-do? I guess I did. I'm going to just write it back here. So to-do, pull from contract. Okay, and that's basically going to get our NFT hooked up. So what we're going to do, update the contract with the URL, and then we're going to run through trying to buy And I'm also going to make it so that you cannot view the actual NFT image until it's been purchased. And to do that, we're going to have to come into our Aleph, our Python code over here that's interacting with Aleph. And basically, we're going to have to add a Web3 component and be able to talk to the contract and say, hey, does this exist yet or not? Essentially, we're going to have to run that owner function that we have in our JavaScript and say, hey, does anybody own this? And if they do, then we'll generate it. Otherwise, we're going to return some JSON that says something like, hey, this doesn't exist, or something like that. Something along those lines. So there's a fair amount left to do. And then obviously I need to add in way more image options and kind of build this out, because right now it doesn't really generate very many things. So yeah, I hope you're enjoying this. This is kind of a little bit more of a rambling episode. We're getting really close to having this done. In the next episode, like I said, we'll sort of rework the smart contract to have this URL in it to start. I need to actually figure out how. I guess I can just like generate a new ETH account. That's kind of fine. And then like that'll sort of reset where I'm pulling from, because I want to start fresh. I've already minted all of these NFTs. I want to start with a fresh batch when we run through this in the next video. Anyway, I think that's pretty much it. I'm going to go ahead and leave it here, and we'll pick this up in the next one, and hopefully I'll have way more images in here so it's a little more interesting. But hopefully you're liking this. Give it a thumbs up, and I'll talk to you next time.